Why are there so many incompetent male and female psychologists? Discussions, debates. Hey guys! At first, I apologize for the catchy title. I understand that this way I might attract more people who can correct or corroborate what I say. Well, in a quick summary, I've had depression since I was a child and I've always had great difficulty living with it. I went through around 12 professionals and only one really managed to help me. I don't intend to talk more about depression, but rather about my difficulty in treating it with appropriate professionals. In the last few days, I have been reading the book The Noonday Demon by Andrew Solomon, and it talks about how for him it was always necessary to meet 11 professionals before finding one that was worth it. Clearly, I couldn't ignore the correlation, and my curiosity led me to talk to friends who had the same reports. I understand that making a generalization based on such a tiny database is nonsense, so I would like to hear other opinions or even sermons. I had professionals of all types and, curiously, the one that impressed me most was the one who charged the cheapest for the service. My first experience was when I was 8 years old, when I went to a psychologist shortly after my parents separated, and when I told her that my classmates called girls sluts, she had the audacity to tell me that this word was not meant nothing. That it was just a space for an ass, like a parking lot. She even had the courage to point to a nearby chair as an example. I had another psychologist when I was 13 who only knew how to tell me, yes, it's complicated, and I'm going to refer you to a psychiatrist to prescribe medication. I don't remember anything more than that coming from her. I spoke throughout the consultation and I constantly noticed her lost in thought. I also had a psychologist who seemed to have been horrified by everything I said about the violence I saw at the time using the internet, and the way he looked at me, it seemed like he was scared of me, always looking suspicious. I also remember when I had a suicide attempt at 18 and the two psychologists who arranged it for me kept saying that God wouldn't like my attitude and that a young person like me shouldn't feel that way. My silence about the situation still gave rise to rolling my eyes. For now, I looked for a psychologist again. This time I paid even more for hypnotherapy, and I honestly couldn't have regretted it more. I even paid in advance. I was so desperate to get help. Her approach is honestly shameful. He tries to hypnotize me in a maximum of 3 minutes and thinks it's enough to go into regression. Then, read a text on a sheet of paper for 40 minutes. Detail, the text is always the same, it never changes. He never gives any insight. He always says I should talk to my inner child. The worst thing is that I don't even try to hide it, but she continues with everything. In the first conversation, she told me that I would have to go back to medication. 10 minutes of conversation, seriously, and when I refused, she told me to try florals. Floral? Old? Floral? I told her about the ketamine treatment that I recently started and which helped me a lot, and she didn't even know what it was about. At least in my opinion, it should be mandatory for you in the profession to have at least an idea of what is being used with the highest success rates recently to cure recurrent depression, right? Honestly, I gave up on treatment. I paid in advance and lost money. I have no energy to go to appointments anymore. The only psychologist I liked wasn't like that either. What I liked about him was the friendship we created, but I didn't really have therapy. So, post-texteo, what could be happening? I don't think I'm looking wrong, since whenever I looked for these professionals, the ratings were high and the consultations were expensive. The latter has around 50 reviews on Google and a 4.8/5.0 rating. Lots of people thanking her for the treatment, and I really don't understand how. For the record, I've done 6 of the 10 sessions and haven't enjoyed any of them so far. I'm always honest with her about what's not working, but she seems to forget and always come back to the same point. I don't believe that therapy is a miracle or anything like that, but I imagine that I should at least leave the appointment with more hope instead of wanting to jump on the subway. I apologize in advance if I have upset anyone, but I hope you understand how much time and money I have already spent seeking help without success. Anyway, what do you think is going on?